Alrighty, hey Whitney, man, I just wanted to give you a quick little demo on ZBrush. As you can see, there's a little bit of dragging that happens. That's because of the recording device. I'm using Camtasia to record what I'm doing, so it slows ZBrush down a little bit, but you'll get the basic idea. So yeah, when you turn on ZBrush, it gives you this type of interface. It's not very friendly looking, but once you get the hang of turning it on and stuff like that, you're gonna do fine. Um, so what I thought I would do is just give you a quick kind of demo of the sculpture side. There's also really cool things you can do to kind of drag bits and pieces of already sculpted images. Like if you want to do like some military thing, you can easily do that. But I just want to show you the basics of sculpture. So I called up these images, which I've never sculpted a fish before. But I remember you are into fly fishing, and not really into trout or anything like that, but I do like the piranha. So it'd be pretty easy to sculpt the basic shape. The most difficult thing is the inside of the mouth, and that's what I'm going to be focusing on, is how do you do that. And you can also, which is really cool, you can take a photograph, and if you go to ZBrush and you go to see-through, you see how you can see through your image, your ZBrush interface, and you can use that as like tracing. So any image that you have, could be your drawing, it could be a painting, it could be a master painting, it could be a photograph. You can use that as reference for when you sculpt on top of that. So that's really cool. So I'm just going to pick a material to start with. Basically, there's nothing in ZBrush to start with. If I start drawing, it just gives me these like weird squares. We need to bring in an actual piece of clay. So I'm going to do Control N as in Nancy to clear the canvas. Oops. Control N. Okay. And then let's go to Lightbox. Here's where we can find our virtual clay and all kinds of other goodies. But I'm just going to focus on sculpture. So let's pick, let's just pick this one. It's called, let's pick this one. It's called Dynawax. And they're all basically the same, but it just gives you a material to start with. Do I want to do a new project? Yes. Do I need to save this? No. Okay. Dun, dun, dun. And then we have our piece of clay, virtual clay. Right? And you can't really see the ball turning around except for this little grid back here. It gives you an idea. As soon as you start marking the clay, you'll get a sense of what it looks like. So let's do this. Let's go to preview. And I'll just kind of keep the fish on the side here for a little bit. Maybe over here. Actually, what I'll do, let me just look at the fish. Basically what I do is I have like two monitors. One I can see my reference, and one I can see the ZBrush interface. So just imagine to yourself that you have a photograph sitting on your desk or a drawing of a fish. Okay, so it's off to the side right now. So what I'm going to do first is kind of stretch out the figure. Let me see. If I'm just dragging over the cursor, you'll see these two dots. That means it's in symmetry. If you press X, back to asymmetry. But you always want to sculpt symmetrical at the beginning. Okay, you don't want to get the thing way out of whack at the beginning and then have to worry about matching on both sides. So one of my favorite tools, here's our toolbox right here. We press here, you got all these cool tools you can use. But you can literally do all your sculpture with just like 3 or 4. You don't need all these fancy things. So I'm going to go to something called Snake Hook. And what that does, you can grab and pull your chunk of clay, just like it sounds, like a hook. So if I go to here and drag, and then go to here, I've already got a perfectly sculpted fish. Look at that. No, but as you can see, because I'm working symmetrically, you can see it already in a matter of less than a minute. No, I'm not going to say I know much about fish anatomy. I don't, but I know they're skinny. That's about all I know. And it'd be great with reference. Sometimes it's great to have the top view and all that stuff. I'm just way too lazy to look up all that. Okay, and then I'm going to press Shift, and you'll see a little button right here. That's for smooth. And I'm just going to try to smooth this guy out before it gets too lumpy and bumpy. Smooth it out. Smooth it out. Still a little lumpy. I don't want to deal with a lot of bumps later, if possible. Little lumpy on the bottom there. So it's fairly low res. So again, I'm holding down Shift and drawing. And this is the one thing I forgot to mention. You need to get a Wacom tablet and a Wacom pen. That cost about, I don't know, $100. So, but it's cool. You can't really do this with the mouse, or you can, but you're going to be really making things hard for yourself. So I just from experience know that if you smooth out your shapes, get it nice and streamlined, that later on when you start doing the detail, you won't have to worry so much about, oh, the general shape isn't quite right. And this is something that's almost impossible to do with clay, is to make it nice and smooth like this. So anyway, you get the idea. There's your basic fish. And then there's something, well, let me just show you. Let's just do something very simple. I don't want this to turn into like an hour demo, but like if you just, I'm just using snake hook again and just kind of pulling it like that. And then I'm going to go back to smooth, just trying to get that flat, very flat back of the fish type of look. Okay. And you can also use a snake hook to push it in, but at this point you might need to start sculpting a little bit. I don't know. I'm just peeking at the fish. Oh, let's do this now. Let's say we have our happy fish, happy dappy. Let's expand it like that, right? And then let's do transparency just to check, and I can see how jacked up my fish is. Let's see. There's a way of doing this. Move. There was a way of moving this a little bit easier, but I guess I can just keep going back and forth and checking myself. There we go. Check, 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 check. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let me turn off all this craziness. Okay, so snake hook. I'm going to try to follow all the stuff I did wrong. Let me turn it off again. Okay, so he has a much skinnier kind of tail than I realized. So I'm just going to push that right in there. Make the draw size a little bit smaller. Again, the computer is dragging a little bit because I'm recording it. I'm using a different program to record, so the computer is kind of a little angry with me. But even that little bit of thing that they have on the top of their head is very distinctive to the piranha. And they got to get that underbite that they have, which is really cool. Maybe what I'll do is I'll kind of start this, and then later on I might do another tutorial about, let's continue with Mr. Piranha here. I don't know. Or maybe I'll just get so jazzed I won't be able to stop. So basically I'm just trying to get the body. And imagine this, looking at your own drawings too. Doesn't have, there you go. So now it's a little bit more specific. A little bit more piranha-like. I'm going to try to smooth out, again, go back and smooth out those bumps that I did. Let's see. So from the top, he's way too fat. in my opinion. So let me just, with the snake hook, push it right in as best I can. Go up here, move. Just pushing, basically. Eventually, I'm going to have to start sculpting soon. Okay. So let's just jump right into sculpture now. So now I've pushed and pulled my piece of gum, it looks like. I can also go to something called clay buildup, which is something, and I'm just going to start goofing around here. See how I can start adding pieces of clay to it, right? Again, it gets a little chunky because the computer, again, is a little slow because of Camtasia, I'm recording. So you get some weird bumps once in a while. But let's do Control-Z to undo that. But you can also do subtract. So you're taking clay away. And with that, I can make that fin a lot skinnier. And you'll see it's starting to not look like bubblegum anymore. I can really sharpen up that back fin. There we go. Move. And you can still smooth it out. Hold the smooth tool down. And now we've got something that starts to look a little bit more fish-like. Now, I have to tell you, I've never sculpted a fish before, so anyway. So let's just start sculpting. I'm going to press preview, just so I can kind of see what this guy looks like from a couple of different angles. So they're really pointed on top. But, I mean, eventually, when you start getting into ZBrush, you're going to sculpt fish a lot better than I can because you know them so much better. But you get the idea. Give them a little bit of an extra point there. Start working on the jaw a little bit. And you can change material too. Like, let's say we have this white wax. We can switch to a brown, you know, so you can see the shapes a little better. And you can switch back to your wax. You know what I'm saying? So you can switch just so you can see the shapes a little bit better. Okay, so let's just have some fun turning this into a fish. Okay, I'm going to smooth out one more time. Alright. Now, like I said, the hardest thing is the inside of the mouth. But let's just try something crazy. Let's just push the inside of the mouth in using snake hook. See what happens there. And he's got a mouth. Try a little bit smaller draw size. Again, this is more down and dirty, but why not? And then let's just open up the mouth. So what I did is I just kind of pushed the clay right in there. Yeah. So it might not be a perfect piranha, but you get the idea. And then if we go to the draw tool, this is my favorite, standard. Again, you can do Z add and Z subtract. Let's do subtract. Again, this is not a an actual class that I'm teaching you. This is more like just showing you what this program can do. So if I draw this negatively, I can give myself like eye sockets. And then they have something really cool where you can insert bits and pieces. So if we go to the letter I for insert, these are all the inserts. And there's a simple one for insert sphere. Click that and just click and drag. You know, now we've got an eye, eyeball. You know, and they have these really cool kind of shapes on the sides of their body. I'm trying to think of how I could do it, but there's something called masking, where if you hold down Control, you can actually mask parts of the figure out. Just like if you're doing an airbrush painting, you create like a mask. So certain areas are going to be sculpted and certain areas are not. So I got this kind of funky mask happening. So then, if I go to, let's use the standard, it's a basic draw tool. Oops, Control Z, way too strong. What if we just did something like that? So I'm drawing, but it's stopping right at the mask. And then if we clear the mask, now you can see we've got that shape going on there. Let's try it again. Another one. Kind of random in a way. And I'll draw on the back of that. Give us another shape. Clear the mask. I've got another one right there. Let me try something with those, the mouth, make it really vicious. Try to expose those gums. So if I just draw like that, again, it's stopping right at the mask. Makes it, let me add more of the mask here. So I'm trying to create these really vicious gums. But again, it's stopping at the mask line. And now we've got that going on. So, yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, but how do you do the fins? Oh, it's, you know, Mr. Fancy Pants. What if you just did this? What if you took something as simple as the sphere, right? And I'm just going to put a sphere right on the top of him, right, like that, right? Now, because we just put it on, it masked everything else out, so we can just work on that sphere. So let's go back to Snake Hook. I'm going to try to see if I can do as much as possible with just like 2 or 3 tools. Make it a little bigger, and we just stretch it out. Now we've got a fin. It's more like a shark, but let's see what these fins look like. Actually, they're a lot longer. Again, I don't know diddly squat about fish, but you get the idea. Maybe something along those lines. And then I'm going to do the smooth tool. Right. Smooth. And I'm going to actually go to the clay buildup again and do subtract. Whoa! Easy there, my friend. Way too intense. I'm trying to really... Probably there's other things I could have inserted rather than a sphere, but I really want to flatten that fin out. There we go. And let's see what happens when we smooth it. Alright, that's something. Not the greatest fin in the world, but it's starting. And then I go back to Snake Hook. Snakety snake. See what happens if I just grab little pieces. Kind of like a square type of a look. And it should kind of go back in space. It's amazing how skinny fish are. Really annoying. So let me see if I can make this fin a little bit skinnier. Go to back to clay buildup, subtract. Just really nailing it so it's very, very thin. There you go. And then go back to the smooth tool. Smooth that rascal out. There you go. That's not the most horrible fin in the world. Could be worse, could be better. And then I'm going to clear the mask. So now it's part of the dealio. Let me try something. If I go to the snake hook, it might be slightly different than the actual piranha, but if I'm using a very small snake hook, I'm wondering if I can just stretch it out and then smooth it out. Oops. And smooth it out. There we go. I really want the fin to be thin. And you can get it paper thin if you need to. But let's go back to Clay Buildup. So this would be, if this was a freelance job, you know, my goal, there you go, my goal would be to try to get those fins really skinny somehow. You know, because I think that's the key to the fish, is that thinness. There you go. So it doesn't, again, it doesn't look too bubblegummy. Bubblegummy. Created a new word. Alright. Now see, we're starting to get it to feel a little bit more like a fish. I've looked at fish like 3 times my entire life, so I don't know what I'm talking about, but you get the idea. So, and like I said, we can do different materials. We can have it look like different, if it's like a shiny type of a thing, you know, all that fun stuff. Now, let's try some textures. Let's go crazy now. Now, this is a fairly low resolution image. Let me save this because I don't want it to crash. Let's just do wit fish. Wit fish. Okay, and then let's up-res it. Right now the geometry is very low. Let's do divide once. Now you can see, look how much better that looks. You know, it starts to look like virtual clay. Let's hit it one more time. Okay, so now it's very high resolution. Very, very high res. Took very little time. Some of these bumpy bumps almost look intentional. Delete lower. And I saved, and I can give you these. Many people have given me all these alphas. There's like 5 trillion alphas. And you can imagine, you know, going back to the airbrush world, how certain things can look fish-like. You know, there's like these weird scales and, oh, I don't know. I have so many alphas that I don't know what to do with them all. But all they are is black and white Photoshop images. And you can use them to create textures on the side of your character. So I'm looking for something that's actually fish scales because I'm just so incredibly lazy. But let's see what we can find. Let's try something really organic like this. It looks like a photograph of an elephant. So I'm going to double click on the elephant skin, and you'll see it pop up right there in the alpha palette, which is a good thing. So, actually, let me try something a little bit different. I'm going to use the regular, well, let's try this. Let's try this. Let's try drag rectangle. See if I can drag some alphas on there. There you go. It's subtle. Let's make it a little bit more intense so you can see what it looks like. You can see you've got that kind of fish pattern happening now. I mean, I don't know if it's fish, but it's something. And because there's a sharp edge around the alpha, that's what happens when you get some of that stuff in there. So maybe it might not be the best, but it's not terrible. I'm going to go to smooth and just kind of smooth out some of those weird edges. So now it starts to look a little bit more, dare I say, naturalistic. Let me try another alpha. Let's try something simple like this one right here. Double click. And then if it ends up in this one by mistake in texture, that's okay. you just do make alpha, which took me like a year to find that. So let's try that. Now I've got some cool kind of fish patterning happening, I guess. So it has kind of weird holes in it. What I'm doing is dragging and letting go, dragging and letting go, dragging and letting go. And it gives you some interesting textures. But I don't know if I like that. Let me try something. It's a little too obvious. I don't want to spend forever on alphas, but you get the idea that you can start utilizing things from real nature. You know, maybe instead of going for something so obvious, let's do something really random, like this. I don't know what it is. Make alpha. Okay, so now I've got something completely random. And if we don't want to drag it on, we can just draw it on. Let's see what happens if we draw it on. Okay, a little too strong. Let's lower the intensity. Let's do add instead of subtract. See what happens there. I'm just kind of scribbling randomly, but you can see it starts to look a little bit more natural. Random, 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 random. And then maybe I'll actually do some line work if I can with the fin. So I'm going to make the draw size pretty small and just kind of scribble some lines on there, just like a drawing. Very simple. And again, now this is not perfect, but I'm just showing you how, kind of quickly you can do that. Alright, there we go. Scale it back. So anyway, that gives you a basic idea how you can do a fish. So let's say we want to paint it now, right? We've done our fish. And save it. Now we're going to paint it real quick. There's a whole other thing you can do with painting. You can actually take photographs and map them on to your character. I mean, I could use this. It's just so low res. It's painfully low res. Let me look up Piranha. I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to try to find a high-res image of a piranha, and I'm going to map it on for you. Okay, so we'll just pause this for a minute. Alright, so I found a decent-sized photo of a piranha. I put it on my desktop, and then I'm going to go to Texture, Import, and so I can find it now. All my crap on here. Piranha. Okay, I have a few of them here. This one is a higher resolution. Looks more like a baby piranha, but good enough. So open up that. Okay, I go to Texture again. If I click on the piranha and then do Add to Spotlight, now it's inside ZBrush. We can move the photo around. We can do whatever we want. We can make it a little bit smaller. So we're going to try to map this photo onto this piranha guy. Okay, good enough, I guess. Again, it's snapping around a little bit because the recorder is going, but it's all good. Oops. So now, let me make sure I'm on Paintbrush, because we're going into the painting mode now rather than the sculpting mode. Let me pick a normal. And I'll talk to you all about these settings, but basically I turn the paintbrush on, RGB on, sculpting stuff turned off, Put this on zigzag. Oops, I forgot to do one other thing. Turn spotlight on. Woohoo! And I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so now when you have this halo, you can see it'll start being able to map it onto our character. There's a little bit of writing on there, but you get the idea. It's all good. So let me enlarge our fish a little bit bigger. Move them over. And then also, let me line that up. Okay, so it's going to be pretty basic. It's just, you're just going to be kind of mapping it on. You know. Now, if you see that the eye is breaking up a little bit, there's something called intensity. There we go. It's got to adjust the intensity. I never knew what the problem was. So now the eye isn't so bad. Fin isn't quite lined up, but it's all good. You just move that over. I'm doing this really sloppily, but let's get the idea. Slap that on there. And it gives you kind of just like a ballpark idea of how to get some color on there. So now we've got the color, but we can also take the top part of that and use that for his top part of his head. So I'm going to move this over, make this a little bit smaller, and cheat it. When in doubt, cheat it. I'm going to do that the same with the top part of his body. Move that over, cheat it. And the fins are really tricky, but I'm just going to cheat the heck out of that. There we go. And I'm not going to worry so much about the dark bottom part of his fin. I'll just kind of do that, and I can just draw that. I can just paint that normally. So now we have color. We've got a colorful fish. Let me turn off the floor. Look at that. Instant joy that you can use for your Photoshop imagery or whatever you want. You can also do best preview render, see if it looks any better. About the same. The eye didn't quite line up, but it ended up creating this interesting little eyelid by mistake. You know. What else? You can also use this as a color picker. You know, it's by dragging it over. Unless I have this dark gray, I can just paint it by hand too. I can just go in, start painting by hand. I can add like a speckle texture so it doesn't look so flat and cheesy. And then maybe crank up the intensity a little bit. But you see I'm adding dots now, like dot patterns. Do the same with the bottom maybe, I don't know. So, and you can still change your material. You can still, there's like a white material, there's a gray, there's this type of stuff, there's a gray. Yeah, it looks a little too, I like the shiny. Like, that's kind of interesting. You know, that feels very fish-like. And I also have a whole bunch of materials that I've collected that I can give you, like crap loads of material. White, jelly bean, isn't that crazy? Jelly bean. Doesn't quite show up the color very well. There's one, look at that, isn't that crazy? That looks pretty darn cool. You just want to squeeze it. You just want to cut off its head and eat it. So let's do something very, I'm not sure if it's going to work, but I got to show you this. Let's try to get those teeth in there and then we'll be done. Let me just do save. Save as we go. Actually, he's not even in perspective either. If we push perspective, now it looks like he's a little bit more in 3D. Turn perspective off. Alright, so if we have a very small, I'm not sure if it's going to work, but we have snake hook and we make it very small, we might be able to just grab a little piece and just drag it forward. And we've got teeth. Now the problem is the snake hook actually erases the color. So let me try the move tool instead. Making life more difficult for myself. Let's try move. Make it even smaller. See if that'll work. Make it even smaller. So that's kind of a way of possibly doing teeth, the lazy way. I still think they're too big. There we go, a little bit more piranha-like. It's just tricky getting it in the right angle. Oop. 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 That tooth. Alright. So there we go. That is a very down and dirty example of what you can do with ZBrush. And scale it up. If you wanted to export this just as a photograph, you can easily do that. Just go to Document, Export, Photoshop or JPEG, call it Whitfish, and I can actually send you the photo. Wouldn't that be great? Save, and it also gives you an option to crop the photo a little bit. So imagine you have this as your base that you can paint on top of and do awesome illustrations. Fly fishing illustrations, for Christ's sake. Boom, you're done. Right? Now you have that photograph that you can paint on, stuff like that. Let's try one last thing. Let's put a back. Well, anyway, you can put backgrounds in here if you wanted to. You can put like a photograph of. Oh, let's try one last thing. Let's say we want to pose this guy now. Let me just save one more time. Replace. So now we've got it in this very asymmetrical, not very interesting pose. Snake would be fun, but I would lose the paint job. So I'm going to make a very small fish. This is something I learned more from animation than ZBrush. I make a very small fish, and I'm just going to turn symmetry off. I'm going to push him in one direction. See if that worked. Maybe. Maybe not. Snake hook works great, but then you lose your paint job. Okay, now let me scale. I just pushed it in one direction. Let me see if it totally jacked him up. Nah, it doesn't look that bad. Control Z, Control Z. Alright. What I should have done is probably posed him before I painted it. But let me just show you what happens with snake hook, because that works out much better. We'll lose our paint job, but we can always repaint it later on. Scale it back. Scale it back. So maybe he's kind of twisting in one area, or one direction. So now you see it's kind of twisting. but I am losing my paint job, but you get the idea. Like if we really wanted to make something gestural and twisty. Tough. Fish are tough to move because I don't want to distort the face too much. We could try masking off the top part of the body and just move the back part. Let's try it, see if that works. That works a little better. Turn the mask off. So now we've got a little bit of an extra twist happening there. You know, now you can see you can get some dynamic poses. Let me turn this crazy color off. There we go. You can do some kind of dynamic twisted poses pretty quickly with just a quick move with the snake hook. Alrighty, let me go back to our glossy gloss. Or even this one, that's crazy. Isn't that cool? So anyway, there's my little tutorial on how to sculpt very quickly, very sloppily, but how quickly you can come up with something pretty cool. Okay, man, good luck with that.